Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. I hope you had an amazing Easter week. This is one of those mini shows that came out of my visit to CES. Margaret and Michael have some amazing furniture technology we're going to be talking about, but before we get into the conversation, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Margaret, Michael, welcome. I'm going to confess, I never quite exactly, when I've got more than one guest on, I never sort of quite manage it and trying to figure out who's supposed to talk for what. But I'm going to start with Michael. I guess I'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about I'm going to do this a little differently before I have a sort of a standard question to start with, but I want to start with a little bit about who you are, your company, what you do.
Awesome. So I'm Mike Chalfin. I'm the president of Samuelson Furniture. I am fourth generation in our company. So my great grandfather and grandfather started our company together in 1935. So we are furniture people through and through. Runs deep in our blood. And, we are located in Paterson, New Jersey, where we still maintain about 60,000 square foot manufacturing facility, including our admin. And we have about 55, 60 people on staff here that are creating some of the finest furniture in the country. And we're also doing large scale production offshore in Southeast Asia and in Europe. So we're a unique little niche company that is doing some really fantastic things with furniture, especially in the senior care market.
Okay, terrific. So I got to ask before we go on, what's that steering wheel in your background?
I'm sorry?
The steering wheel in your background.
The steering wheel. So I'm a huge car guy, car parts and pieces like that kind of adorn my office and my home and whatnot. So this is off of a vintage Jaguar, and there's one above it there that's off of an old MGA.
That's terrific. I love it. I often see like football helmets and all those kinds of things, and so, but I don't think I'd ever seen a steering wheel before. I was curious. My next door neighbor where I live here, he's a big hot rod guy. He builds up cars and sells them. They're with modern brakes and all that kind of thing, and carburetors. And more recently, he's in his not quite into his 80s. His wife passed away, and he's come into some money, and so now he's a buyer of fun cars. And so I'm sort of envious of that. Margaret, let's talk a little bit.
Envious of that.
What's that?
We're both envious of that, Steve.
Yes. Yeah. I've gone for a ride in a couple of his. I'm going off on a tangent, but he's got a wonderful hot rod that I've gone around the block with him a few times, and he's got a couple of old racer cars. Neither one of them I can even fit in, but one drives, the other one needs to be on a track and special fuel. But anyway, it's really fun to visit with him, and his passion is amazing. Margaret, let's talk a little bit about who you are and where you fit into this furniture game.
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you for asking. My background is senior living operations and healthcare operations. So I have joined Samuelson Furniture almost 3 years ago, bringing a new perspective as an industry consultant, understanding the demographic that Samuelson is serving with their new living collection.
Okay, great. So I'm going to let you guys figure out who to answer this, but there's a million furniture manufacturers, and I can go to IKEA, I guess, and buy furniture. What makes Samuelson furniture special before we get into the sound chair?
Oh, well, from my perspective, every piece is made with love. So we are a family-owned company, and we truly wrap our arms around every piece that we make. In particular, the products that we have created for the senior housing market are specifically engineered for senior use. So we're talking about very specific seat heights, specific arm heights, pitches on the back, the interaction between the seat and the arm, leverage points, all these things that most manufacturers are not taking into account when it comes to the use of seniors in that environment. So I think that's something that really is a differentiating factor with our product. Not to mention the aesthetic level of what we're bringing into this market is bar none. So, we're really pushing the envelope and getting everyone away from that kind of hand-carved Louis XV product and looking at things that are much more contemporized and, things that my father and grandfather would have enjoyed in an environment like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting how when you're either doing caregiving or like me, you're starting to get some age on you that, before a piece of furniture is just a piece of furniture that you sit on or use. Once you become a caregiver, right, you have to help people up. Or, maybe when you're younger, you sit and you go, "I'm not sure it's kind of down, kind of low." Now, as you get older, it becomes a big issue, right? So being able to get out is a big deal and be comfortable while you're there.
Agreed.
Margaret, so you ran memory care for Belmont Village for many years, and before you were ever a furniture maven. And now you are with Samuelson, and you have been deeply involved in creating this really unique chair technology that we haven't really talked about. So why don't you tell me a little bit about why you got involved in this and the problem that this chair is solving?
Absolutely. So memory care is a very unique demographic. It's a growing demographic. And as the needs are growing, the number of communities and the number of caregivers are not meeting the demand. So it's very important that we find tools and have tools to help the staff that is there care for our beautiful friends and residents and family members as they age and as they experience cognitive decline. And the sound chair does just that. It is a beautiful piece of furniture aesthetically. Everyone knows how to sit in a chair. There's nothing scary about sitting in a chair, as you noted. We also tend to sit longer and longer. No one ever says move into senior living and have a seat, yet we all know we do that. So it's important that it's comfortable, number one. Michael had the genius idea to add technology to the beautiful aesthetic chairs. We have 10 sound chair designs. The one that we brought to CES is our most popular one, the immersion chair that you've experienced, Steve. And it creates a vibroacoustic therapy. I'll let you jump in here, Michael, and describe that for us, but it brings the Bluetooth connection to the user. You're up, Michael.
Okay. Yeah. So I think as Margaret mentioned, being furniture people, the aesthetic of the item is and was important to us when we were developing the product. And really what we were trying to do was develop something that was a beautiful piece of furniture first and foremost, and then it does. Okay. And so if the item were to be turned off and sitting in a high-end environment, nobody would be any the wiser that this chair is able to produce sound and do so in such a unique way. Additionally, as Margaret is saying, everyone knows how to sit, right? And so that is something that's instinctual for most people as we grow up. Combining that technology and being able to help an individual hear something or move the audio source from, let's say, the TV that may be 20 feet away from that person to where they're actually sitting, is a game changer for that individual to be able to hear something properly, but doing so in a non-threatening way, right? A piece of furniture that's comforting, inviting. It's not something that is going to single somebody out, make them look different or feel different, like an over-the-ear pair of headphones, right? These things are great. I use them all the time, but they're hot, they're uncomfortable, and I look a little bit silly, right? Once I put them on, I'm isolated from the rest of the group. I have to take my headphone off to hear what Mrs. Smith may be saying to me next to me. And so, those are the things that were super important to us when we're developing this product.
So I'm going to stop you Michael, I'm going to stop you for a second here. Let's actually talk a little bit about more what the chair, I think that if I were an audience, I'd be sort of going, I don't know what you're talking about. So is this a chair with speakers in it, or talk to me about what this chair actually looks like, what it does?
Yeah, great question. So the chair doesn't have speakers in it. The chair essentially becomes a speaker. And that's what's really so unique about it. So, you can go out, you could buy a gaming chair. They have speakers embedded in them, or haptic systems, which rumble the seats when you have some sort of explosion that's taking place on the screen. Those are fine and well. And, they do produce sound, but they don't do so very clearly. They're a little bit ugly. They're a lot of bit ugly. And, it's not something that you would put into a senior community, and really, let alone, somebody's house. So what we're doing is we've created a tech that actually ultrasonically vibrates the entire chair. And so those vibrations are in turn heard as sound waves. And so essentially what's happening is you are sitting in the center of the speaker. You are in the speaker as opposed to something firing at you. And because we're producing sound through vibration, there is this tactile response that the chair is producing that is 1000% in sync with what you are hearing, right? That creates this additional level of engagement for somebody that is really, unheard of until today.
Okay, cool. So, Margaret, I want to come back to the dementia angle on this. It sounds like the chair has been largely created for people with dementia. Let's start with this. What problem does it solve?
Absolutely, Steve. It solves for agitation. You think of a friend in the community having a really hard day, and staff is working hard to solve that, to help this beautiful resident and their friend have a better day. And now they have a new tool to do that. They can easily ask Mrs. Smith to have a seat in a chair. It's not scary, as Michael noted. It's not invasive. They've been doing it their whole lives. And with that, they can connect via Bluetooth to a television, perhaps their favorite show that they can hear well. But more importantly, I like to connect to music. We know the power of music. It transcends place and time. So we can immediately have, within a matter of seconds, Mrs. Jones's favorite song playing in this chair. And not only can you watch her connect and have this light bulb aha moment, but you can watch the stress melt off her face. She'd been angry and confused before, and now she's transcended, hearing wise, physically feeling the vibrations, and her emotion and her demeanor completely changes. Even if she's nonverbal, you can see that has sparked a long-term memory. Her favorite song from high school, her favorite song from her wedding, her favorite artist. That music transcends place and time. And because you're not only having a hearing experience, you're having a physical experience, it's a powerful moment, and it really helps solve for agitation.
Okay, couple of questions. How long do people? Now let me do the other question first, and I'll come back to that. I'll give you both of them, and you can pick how you want to answer them. Does it work for different stages of dementia, of Alzheimer's, better than others? What stages? And then typically when somebody uses it, for how long a period are they using it?
I'll answer that. It works for all stages of dementia. We all want to hear well. The nice thing when it's connected to a TV, and I happen to have a sound chair in my living room connected to the TV. I am a boomer consumer, Steve. I'm aging. I hope well, but I'm aging. And I can hear better when I sit in that chair. And hearing is an important cognitive assessment tool that we use to keep ourselves healthy. And hearing well is part of that tool. So it starts even before dementia for hearing well. Moving into the dementia lane, it really solves for that calming effect, a tranquil effect. They're being used in a lot of quiet rooms. We have typically sold them in pairs, because there's usually a line waiting for the chair. Once staff and family members realize the effects and the benefits of this chair, they are used nonstop. And we are really pleased to be able to provide something that's so useful in this setting.
Well, that was one of the questions I had is that where do you, if I buy a chair or two, where do I put them? I mean, normally, space is pretty premium for memory care. There's a tendency to kind of put everything in the same big room where people can see that. So how does that work?
Absolutely. So our chair would often go in the common area in the memory room. Sometimes there's a little alcove for a tranquility or quiet room, but either place it works beautifully. And I can assure you that there is always someone wanting to sit in the sound chair. both just aesthetically because it's comfortable and beautiful if they use it only for a chair, but more importantly, if they add the aspect of sound, then you have that calming, tranquil effect. And you think about the buzz and the activity and that common space in a memory care setting, it can be loud and it can be confusing and it can be a little bit scary for someone who cannot process all of the noise. But to have your own environment, your own listening environment with your favorite song, with the music coming directly to you, or with the TV show coming directly, but I could still respond to my neighbor. Yes, I would like a glass of lemonade. I can hear you and I can hear what's happening in my chair. It is truly a personal listening experience.
Okay, so how many of these chairs do you actually have deployed at this point? And more specifically in senior living?
Senior living was our first market, and we're growing into the hundreds at this stage as we continue to deploy for with designers, with operators, everyone who sits in our chair. The only question they ask is how soon may we get these out into our community?
Well, there's actually one more question they ask though, right? And that's how much does it cost? And it's pretty pricey. And if I got to get 2 of them, that's like 2 months worth of revenue care. And so I'm trying to think through the mind of an operator. So let's talk a little bit about pricing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an inexpensive item, but I think what we have found is that in most communities, any technology that's being implemented on any grand scale or any item that's being brought in to really be a differentiating factor for that community is not a cheap item, because in order to create something that is special, oftentimes it does take a few dollars behind it to get it there. And of course, the craftsmanship that's going into something, all relates to the dollars and cents. So I wouldn't be frightened by the price tag. I would look at it as, well, there's communities that are putting in the, Toto toilets that cost more than the chair. And we all know what you're doing with that toilet, right? So I'd rather put the money into the chair.
Well, I love that line. I got to tell you, that is perfect. But I think that the question that I have is that if I spend a lot of time talking to operators, and I can envision this conversation of, man, that is really cool. But if I need 2 of these chairs, that's $17,000. That's a lot of money to spend. And then the thought goes, I'd be willing to spend that if it can prove that I can really substantively improve the quality of the experience for my residents, if it makes it possible for me to reduce the workload on my staff significantly, measurably, if it helps me either attract or retain more residents to keep my building full. So can you sort of talk through those issues? Michael, I'm going to go with you first, and then Margaret will let you add to that.
Yeah. So we end up doing a lot of what's called sit tests. So, it's common. I don't know how many of the listeners are really into furniture or touching furniture on a constant basis, but many of these communities are requiring sit tests with products before they're willing to commit to actually, the dollars for the product, whether it be a dining chair or a sound chair or a sofa that's going into the environment. So what we have found is that, the chair really does need to be experienced, because it all sounds great on paper and we can talk about it until we're blue in the face on the podcast. But once you've actually sat in that chair and you've experienced what we're talking about, there is that light bulb moment, as Margaret says. And it really is a game changer. So is it a little bit more costly? Yes. But if we're helping people and we're able to enter that environment and able to help somebody, reduce agitation or reduce confusion, then it's really, in my opinion, it's a priceless item.
Mm-hmm. And the other nice thing about the price, Steve, is that it's a one-time cost. There's no monthly recurring revenue after you purchase the chair. It is a true fixed cost. We are also seeing the chairs being used as differentiators in communities. So you look at the adult daughter who is typically looking for a place for her parents, and she is looking for what technology resources the community is investing in to help her parents age well. And this is an easy one to explain. It's an easy one to experience. It's an easy one to have in your discovery room or your common area as families are touring and getting to experience this immediately. So there's so many benefits to a sound chair and the difference that it can make in a community.
So, Margaret, I want to continue with you for a second. You have the chair deployed in a number of communities right now. It sounds like people are really falling in love with it. Can you tell me some stories where operators have come to you and said, "Oh, I got Mrs. Smith is sitting in this chair, and it has just changed everything"?
I don't want to jump in, but I actually have
the story.
Okay, good.
I have a wonderful story, Steve, and so I don't mean to steal Margaret's spotlight, but I do want to share this because it's exactly what you're referencing. So there's a community here in Patterson that's probably 3 blocks away from our office. It's not an affluent community, and so we find ourselves helping them when we can, and we've donated various products to them. A pair of sound chairs being one of them. Okay. When we donated the chairs, I went over there to help place the chair and to teach the staff, how to set it up and use it. And they wanted to take pictures with the community president as well as a couple of the residences. And so they brought a couple of people down. We'll call her Mrs. Smith, sat down into the sound chair. I put on some like loungy house music, which is very vibey and low key and very calming. Miss Smith didn't like it, not one bit, right? And she was kind of like looking at me like, "What is this noise?" So I looked at her and I said, "Well, what is it that you would like to listen to?" And she gave me the name of an opera singer from the 40s or 50s. And I'm not a big opera guy, so I did not know who this was, but I went on YouTube on my phone. I grabbed a performance of hers. I put it on, and Steve, no joke, I'm talking within 5 to 10 seconds, the entire expression on this woman's face changed. She got very bright-eyed and was engaged with me and started to give me the entire life story of this opera singer and her struggles and what her mother was like. And it was an absolutely unbelievable thing to watch happen live. And I get goosebumps to this day talking about that, watching that interaction, because that was the exact response that we were looking for, right? It was that exact moment of, "Hey, get me the hell out of this chair. This thing sucks," to, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm listening to Clara," whoever it was. And I mean, it was just complete engagement from that point forward. So, I mean, that's what we're looking for.
That is a great story. Margaret, you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I know I have a sound chair at my home, and I am a grandmother. And I can assure you that when I call my grandchildren, I've got my phone Bluetooth connected to my chair, because not only can I hear them well, Steve, but I hear the intonation in their voices. I feel like they are giving me a hug as I'm speaking to them. So there are so many use case scenarios for this beautiful chair with purpose, I like to call it, providing that independence with dignity, that hearing well. It is just magical.
So I love this. As you may know, I have a stepfather who's in a residential community, and he's probably a little past mid-stage with his dementia journey. And I find myself wondering how this would go. You've mostly talked about music, but what about football? He's a big football guy. So what about football?
Absolutely. I mean, anything that you're watching on TV, you can have this complete engagement with. So, I have friends who have parents who are hard of hearing, and everyone that have seen this chair, they're like, "My father needs this because when he's watching, the Bills or he's watching the Cowboys, it is at volume 95 and nobody else in the house can enjoy anything but that football game because it is literally blasting into the entire environment." So yeah, football, movies, right? Imagine the connection between an explosion that may be happening on TV and that tactile response the chair is producing along with the sound, right? I mean, it's wham, bam, bam. It's awesome.
So I don't have to worry about having a big explosion on TV and falling out of the chair because of the rattling.
Well, I don't know. You may fall. I don't know, but it's part of the experience, you know.
So, one of the things I always worry about with these kinds of big investments is that they have this novelty factor, that they get used a lot initially, and the usage then tails off over time. Do you have enough experience to know whether the usage continues to happen?
Well, we can prove it. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
We've found that the chairs that we do have placed are consistently being used. You know, so we are seeing that it's not a taper off of usement. It's not a novelty. It's not a toy. You know, it is something that truly is kind of blurring that line between furniture, technology, and I'll dare to say, you know, a little bit of medical equipment sprinkled on top there. So it's not like getting a new iPad and being super excited about it and then throwing it in the corner of the room and not looking at it ever again. You know, it's something that people really are into.
And hearing well is not a fad. It is very important that we continue to hear well. And having a sound chair in my living room, I can assure you that that's the one my husband and I run for every night to watch the news, because yes, we can hear better. And his favorite movie is Top Gun. And I don't know how many times he's watched it. And please don't tell him he's not actually flying the plane when he sits in that chair. I think he thinks he's flying the plane.
Yeah. And you mean you don't have two?
Right.
Sounds like you need to.
There's a birthday coming up. We will make that. We'll correct that.
I see. So, talk to me a little bit about setup on it. What's it take? How do you use it? Those kinds of things.
If you can use a Bluetooth speaker, you can use the chair. So literally plug it in. There's a little indiscreet rocker switch on the bottom of the front rail. You flip it on. You get this great little moment of doo-doo-doo. The chair is now turned on. And then anything with a Bluetooth connection. So your phone, your tablet, your TV, stereo system, anything that has a Bluetooth connection to it, you just select the chair as your Bluetooth device and it pairs, and that's it. You're ready to go.
Terrific. So I'm a senior living operator. I'm watching this show. I'm thinking, I'd really like to try this, but I don't want to spend that money. What do I do tomorrow or this afternoon?
If you're in the tri-state area, you come right over to Patterson, you check out our showroom, and you sit in one of these chairs and experience it. But if you're a little bit further away and you can't quite reach us, then you schedule something for a sit test with one of our team members here, and we can ship a chair out to the community. You can kind of kick the tires a little bit, get an idea of the product and the scale and so on and so forth, and make a decision from there.
This is really terrific. We've got about a minute left. Let's just talk a little bit more about how they find you and to be able to take the next steps.
Yeah. So samuelsonfurniture.com. That's our website. You can contact us through there. Alternatively, Margaret and I are both on LinkedIn. We can leave the proper spellings of our names on the screen there. Perfect. And you can contact us directly through that venue as well.
Right, and of course the links are also in the comments below the feed. So Margaret, you're running a big memory care company now. You woke up one morning and you find yourself no longer running at Samuelson, and now you're back in the business of being an operator. How many of these chairs are you going to buy for each of your communities? Many operators are trialing it in one community, and then it becomes a memory care standard across the entire portfolio. And that's what we're seeing as the common trend. Try it for 1-2 months, and then next thing we know, we're shipping to the entire portfolio.
And we have residents that experience the chair in a public area and then want to purchase to put it into their apartment or personal space, to create that environment for them in their own room.
Yeah, I was wondering about, and I was thinking, well, maybe I need to get one of these for my stepfather Gary, and maybe he'll never come out of his room again. I don't know. So it sounds like I tried it. It is a great experience. I do recommend it. And Margaret and Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Jada, thank you for producing behind the scenes, and I hope you all, those of you who are watching, have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Steve.